Good day, everyone, and welcome to our vertical market diversification seminar series. Today, we're going to talk about the energy vertical. My name is Terry Vasan, and I'm a sales director here at Rajant Corporation. Before I get into the details of the presentation, a couple of housekeeping items. You may have noticed that you are all in the listen-only mode, but you can raise any questions if you want through the chat window, which you'll see on the right side of your screen. So feel free to shoot any questions to me at any point of the presentation. I'll try and answer the questions as we go through the slides. If I'm not able to do that during the presentation, we'll make sure that we are answering all the questions at the end of the presentation. And just in case you cannot hear me, or if there's any issue with any one of you, you can send the chat message now, and then we'll address that. But in the absence of any such question, I'll assume that you can all hear me well, and I'll start with the presentation. All right, the agenda for the presentation today is, first of all, the purpose of this series of webinars is to talk to our channel partners and our customers also, and really have a discussion about the opportunities in the various verticals which are outside our quote-unquote traditional verticals of defense and mining. As many of you may know, that Rajant really cut its teeth in the defense vertical. We got into mining in 2009, 2010 timeframe, and are now considered to be amongst the top 1 or 2 wireless mesh solutions for mining. Now, oil and gas, or energy vertical, we got into that in about 2013, and in under 3 years or so, we've had some big wins in North America, and there are some opportunities in Europe that we are working on right now. So these big wins are, I'm going to talk about these wins here in the presentation, and having worked in the oil and gas for the last about 3 years, we would like to share the experiences that we have gained on winning some of these big deals. So with that background, the things we're going to talk about today, the first one is the vertical market opportunity, then the Rajant value proposition as to what is our value proposition for the energy vertical, and how do we go about uncovering the opportunities which are out there. And then we're also going to talk about the decision makers and what's the approval process with a typical oil and gas customer. And then the last part of the presentation is the technology overview. So there are about 3 slides, which is basically Rajant 101 on what is it that we do, what's our technology about, and what is it that we do which is different from the competitive solutions. So the vertical market opportunity in the oil and gas, in one word, is huge. We've won 2. I've listed here 2 big oil and gas wins that we have. These are both from Texas, actually. The first one is a 90,000-acre an active oil and gas field area, where they have about 500 stationary sites, about 150 mobile assets, and 50 administrative vehicles and locations. So they currently are at about 700 nodes, and this is still growing. The project is expected, but there are some numbers that it could well be in the range of about 1,500 nodes or so by the time the deployment is all completed. The other one is a 600-acre petrochemical plant, again in Texas, where we've got about 200 stationary sites, 25 mobile assets, and 10 administrative vehicles and locations. Currently, they are at about 235 nodes. I would like to mention here also that one of the largest oil sands properties here in Canada is also on Rajant. We didn't really list them here because it looks more like a mining operation, and that's really the core nature of that operation. So it's more like a mining operation. But still, there are a substantial number of assets, and there are a few applications that are running over there which are just like a traditional oil field. So in that sense, that deployment also is no different from any other oil field. So at this location, we currently have about 300 breadcrumbs, and that's easily the largest deployment for us here in Canada. And it's one of the largest deployments of mesh networks in the oil sands here in Canada. So these are some of the big ones, and of course there are scores and scores of such oil fields which are out there, which are our potential customers. There are a few smaller ones that we have won, and we are happy to talk about them if and when you have any questions about the smaller opportunities. So what's our value proposition for winning these projects? How can Rajant help you win these projects? The number one is extreme scalability. As I've already mentioned in my previous slide, that there are deployments out there which have got 200 plus, 300, 700 nodes working in one big property, and they're working as one big contiguous mesh network. And this is very different from most competitive solutions. Most competing products would have limitations of about 15 to 30 nodes. Traditionally, how they would do it is they would mesh on one frequency for the backhaul, and there is no meshing for the access. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more details towards the end of the presentation. Now we allow both fully mobile and numeric methods of implementation. And this gives you a lot of flexibility and reduction of IT cost associated with supporting the network. You may know that any and every of our breadcrumb can be deployed either as a fixed or a mobile or a numeric node. You don't really need to have different SKUs for providing fixed mobility, numeric, or fully mobile deployment. So a node which is on a fixed node today, on a fixed location today, you could deploy it on a truck tomorrow, and again you would have full mobility. And for all this, there is only one type of equipment. There is no access point, there's no client, no mobile, no infrastructure. You don't need separate infrastructure, separate assets for separate type of deployment. And just to give you an example, the property here in Canada, they got one SKU, one unit, that's it, all across the property. About 300 odd breadcrumbs. Some of them are on buildings, some of them on towers, some of them are in the shacks outside, and of course they are on the trucks, on the shovels, and the dozers. Just one SKU all across. Now, we work on layer 2, which is different from almost all competitive solutions which work on layer 3 routing. Now, layer 2 architecture, it allows every breadcrumb to work as a switch, and that can also provide you multiple offload points to the network. So we would exist with your existing network as a standard solution. There's a layer 2 switch working on the Ethernet. But within the mesh, we have the parented protocol, which ensures the delivery and the load balancing of the wireless links. And I'll be able to talk a little bit more about this in the next 1-2 slides. So the ability to work on layer 2 is definitely one of the strong value propositions that Rajant has over competitive solutions. And then is the durability and the quality of the build. So in the durability, there are two components here. One is just how is the product built. And some of you may have seen the product, and you can tell it's built like a tank. It's a very strong, very robust, very resilient product. And the fact that we are able to withstand mining environment is a testament to the quality of our product. Mining, we found, was actually much harsher on our equipment than military ever was. So having worked with mining has really helped us create a product which is very robust. And that helps in the oil and gas field, in the energy verticals as well. And the other part is the life of the project. So typically, the oil fields, the projects are in the range of about 5 to 10 years is the lifetime of the equipment. Now, off-the-shelf Wi-Fi is not able to provide that kind of a lifetime. The project here in Canada the timeline is 9 years. So how we ensure that we are able to provide you the longest the viability of the project or the life of the project is that we follow the 802.11 roadmap. As and when the IEEE issues 802.11 new standards, the new components, the new chips, the new radios become available. We test them, and we are able to integrate the newer radios into the existing breadcrumbs. A typical breadcrumb, you would notice, has got, currently we got 11 A, B, G, and N radios all working in one node. That way, we are able to ensure both backward as well as forward compatibility. Every time we introduce new hardware, every time we introduce new firmware, we make sure it's compatible backward and forward. As a result, you will have, you would not need to do a truck roll, a forklift upgrade every time you need to upgrade your network. You can continue to work, can continue to use your existing assets and put in new assets which will provide you more capabilities, more capacity, and roll out network into areas where you are not there currently. At the same time, providing coverage, providing connectivity to the existing assets. And then finally, what's our value proposition is dependability. Almost all oil and gas and energy customers, they demand that the data be available and delivered all time. It's not just a question of dollars, but also a question of lives. And one quick note that I'd like to mention here is that we almost always run into the question about how do we compete against LTE. And with most oil and gas operations, they have a need to own the network. The big thing that goes against LTE is that they do not own the network. Their data is almost always stored somewhere else. The applications are being run from a server which will not be on their site, and it is being run on some location which could be hundreds of kilometers from the site. And the operations guys, they do not like that. They need to have an ownership of the network, and that's where the benefit of having your own privately owned mesh network comes in. We've had that discussion a number of times, and we almost always win that discussion over LTE. So how do you uncover the opportunities? So the key to winning with the energy producers is basically dollars, dollars, and dollars. If you can help them reduce their downtime or help them preempt the breaking of equipment and helping reduce the IT technician hours and help increase the monitoring of the production, it all translates into saving, and it all adds to the bottom line. And then number two, and only by a very slim margin, is safety. In some places, safety is almost always number one. And we are able to show how monitoring your people, your assets, and monitoring and evaluating your data can produce a safer work site. And then there's efficiency. During the recent oil downturns, producers have shed actually anywhere from 30 to 50% of their field workforces. But at the same time, they're all maintaining or even growing their production. Everybody is trying to grow the production. And this can only be achieved with technology. So fortunately or unfortunately, the reduction in manpower means there is more need, more demand for technologies like wireless mesh solutions and the Rajant solutions. And how you can go about uncovering these opportunities, that you need to engage the corporate IT, security, and even the safety staff. You've got to bring them all onto these competing internal agencies. If you're working with all these guys at the same time, the corporate IT, security, safety guys, besides the operations team on the field, it would increase the chances of your success. The one thing that really helps us is that most of these places, the big oil fields in particular, they would always have an existing legacy technology, and the challenge that they would pose to you is that obviously they cannot just turn down their existing technology, existing networks on day one. You would need to coexist with the legacy technologies for a substantial amount of time. And that's where Rajant really scores very high. The fact that we have multiple radios with multiple frequencies in one mesh node enables us to work in certain frequencies which may not be used in the current network out there. Typically, when you go in, or when we go in, we do a site survey, we figure out what frequencies are being used, and we work with the operations team to move their existing networks to the different parts of the bands. And then we set up a Rajant network in parallel, and we work in different bands and using different spot frequencies, and make sure that we do not interfere with their existing network. And as and when our network keeps getting built up, we start turning off their existing networks, existing technologies, and bring them all onto the Rajant network. We are able to provide a common platform on which they can run multiple applications and bring multiple groups onto one big contiguous mesh network. Typically, you would notice they have different networks being used for different parts of the operations. But having Rajant mesh network enables them to bring all the various operations, all the various applications, all onto one big mesh network. And then finally, focus on the future of the market, on the workforce, and the winning edge in energy is that everybody's gravitating towards automation and speed of implementation. I'm going to talk about this particular point again a little bit more in the next slide, which is on the influencers and decision makers. So, since these are almost always large-scale deployments, they would incur both capital expenditure and operating expenditures. It's very important for us and for you that when we go in to go in and define the requirements, we need to do an application study as to what applications are being run or are going to be run over the life of the project, and what are the requirements of each application. It's important to understand the nature of the applications, like how time sensitive that application is, how critical is the application, how critical is the connectivity, can they afford to lose connectivity. This is more important when they are trying to run autonomous applications or collision avoidance or safety applications. That's where it's very important for them to have 24/7 connectivity and without any loss of connectivity at any point of time. And that's where Rajant scores very high. More critical the application, the stronger is the case for putting in a Rajant network. And when you're defining the requirements, it's important to identify the potential deployment obstacles upfront, and we need to address them upfront. Once you understood the requirements, once you understood the applications, and then it's important to suggest the appropriate hardware. You would notice that the customer would tend to gravitate towards the cheapest possible option. I think it's our responsibility and it's our duty to ensure that they understand how critical the network is, how important those applications are, and how important it is to have a network which would run those applications flawlessly. I have a quick question here. Will a recording of this presentation will be made available? I think I forgot to mention up front that this is being recorded, this presentation, and you will get an email after the presentation is over as to from where and how to download the application, download the presentation. Okay, so like I said, it's very important to define the requirements of the application, the requirements of the customer. Security and safety, again, define the issues and address how Rajant can, and point out how Rajant can help address them. I mentioned this already, that when the lives and properties are in balance, the more critical the application, safety, security, Rajant really scores very high, and that's because of our pedigree with the stuff that we do with the military. We can talk about this in details offline. We can talk about how some stuff we've done with the military, the experience that we've gained, the functionalities that we've added to our technology, how those can help in an oil field or in the energy vertical. Financing of the opportunity. This is always interesting. So you got to manage the whole sales process. These are not like, typically we find that these are not multiple bid requirement customers. They would, and that you would need, that the sales cycle is long and that you would need to engage and own the process from the beginning to the end. It's been our experience that if you lead the discussions up front with the pricing and the costing discussion, it kind of takes away the focus from the technology and as to what is it that the customer wants to do and how Rajant technology can help best meet those requirements. The Texas oilfield network, interestingly, again, the pricing was not discussed up front. They gave us a very unique challenge, and the challenge was that they had their legacy network was built on 900 megahertz, and they were using a lot of Yagi antennas, and this place was very windy, and the antennas, they kept getting whacked out of orientation, and they kept losing the network, and they wanted a network that could be deployed really quick. They brought in 2 players. They gave us an area and said, set up a network here. These are the number of assets. We want them connected. And whoever is able to do it faster, more elegantly, more efficiently would win the bid. And we were able to do it in less than 2 days and have the whole thing up and running. We built the entire network. Practically 95+% of the network, the breadcrumbs are all working on Omni antennas, so they are just not affected by the wind. So yeah, so that's an interesting example that costing was not discussed till the very end. Similarly, the network up here in Canada, their challenge was they've got 4 different networks all running on different frequencies, all running various applications. All they wanted was that a network that would work on at least 3 frequencies, ISM bands and possibly a license band, and on which they can bring in all the applications. And there again, the price was one of the last things we discussed. So it's very important to manage the sales process and work with the customers upfront and work on the technology side first instead of leading with the discussion with the pricing. So management. Some energy companies will require local and corporate approvals, and winning them both is essential. Very rarely do we see corporate overruling the field, so it's been our experience that it helps to start with the field staff first, with the technology guys. Through the technology guys, work your way up to the operations guys. Convince the guys, the technology team on the technology part front, and then they would help set up the discussions with the operations team. And for the operations team, you can help, the discussion needs to be about how we can help them make their operations faster, better, more effective, and obviously help reduce cost and make them more profitable. And then you work your way back to the corporate. ROI considerations. So the remote management, so once you have a mesh network up and running, you are able to run your network remotely. What that means is less boots on the ground, and less boots on the ground means less costs, and you are able to improve, add to your bottom line. Having a real-time monitoring capability of some of the large assets, some of the expensive assets which are driving around in the oil fields operations, it helps you to preempt any downturn on this equipment. And if you're able to preempt the downturn of the downtime of the equipment, it helps in saving some dollars. The efficiency of greenfield exploring, active production, and mid and upstream is essential in surviving the new global energy market. I think it will not be out of place to mention here that almost everybody feels that the OPEC is changing its nature. There've been two big meetings between the OPEC members and between the OPEC and non-OPEC members over the last few months, and they've been unable to come to an agreement on their outputs, on controlling their outputs. Everybody is doing their own thing, and it seems to be the new normal. The long and short of that is the uncertainty in the global energy market has remained forever, and it is likely to remain forever. And in that environment, the efficiency and putting in better technologies to improve this efficiency would always be at a premium. That always helps Rajant. Besides the efficiency of running the operations, the saving lives and reducing injuries and environmental protection, which is a big thing up here in the oil sands, it all leads, and I'm sure in other parts of the world too, they would all lead to massive savings, both monetarily and in public perception. And again, public perception at times is actually more important than perhaps anything else. So we need to be live to that, be aware of that, and talk about how Rajant helps in making their operations better and more greener, quote unquote. So this is the end of the part of the presentation where we've talked about the new verticals and how we can go about addressing those verticals, how identify those opportunities, and how we can help you win those opportunities. There's a question about cost. Yeah, I think I did partially address that question as to how important is costing or pricing. Again, like I said, the answer is yes, cost is important, and the answer is no. It may not be important if you are handling the opportunity right. So the answer is yes and no, but it's important to lead with the discussion on the applications. Try and get as much information as possible about what are the applications that they're running now, and more importantly, what is coming down the line. What's the direction they're going to go to? Are they going to go to autonomous? Almost always they would be looking at going autonomous. Are they going to add more bandwidth requirement? Are they going to go add video? So all those discussions, lead with those discussions, list down all the requirements that they have, and then figure out what's the best hardware, what's the best solution that we can put together for the customer, and then try and get into the discussion on the pricing. So I'm down to my last 3 slides, and these are about the Rajant technology, and some of you would think that these are Rajant 101 and may already know about these. So if you want to drop off, feel free to do that, but if you want to stay on, please do. So Rajant is known for kinetic mesh networking. So our unique network technology is basically built around the hardware, which is called the breadcrumb. We manufacture the breadcrumb wireless network nodes, and the way the breadcrumbs work is that they are able to work as independent nodes. They are intelligent units which are not being run by any central controller or a root controller. There's no network access controller. Each and every breadcrumb is an independent unit, and how it's able to work independently is because of instamesh, the command and control software which runs on the breadcrumb. So our solution is a combination of the hardware and the protocol called the instamesh. We enable true mobility. All network nodes can move at all the times. All the clients can move all the times. All application data can use any node necessary to reach its destination from any location in the network, from any location on the network to anywhere else in the network. And we are able to deliver true scalability. So we have the ability, the breadcrumbs have the ability to respond to the changing requirements. These could be the changing environment and the changing requirement. These could be any change in the RF environment. If any particular frequencies get congested, you would notice the breadcrumb would avoid that and use a cleaner channel. If you add a breadcrumb, if you add a node into the network, the network would self-configure itself, bring that node inside into the network and start working with that node, and as that node moves out of the network is able to self-heal on its own, again, without a routing protocol, routing table being refreshed at a central location by a network access controller. The network on its own is going to reconfigure, self-heal, and propagate itself. And so this gives you the ability to add more nodes easily and quickly and without compromising performance. There's a question here. Do we have content or collateral that can assist in positioning Rajant mesh solutions in the energy market? Yeah, so besides this presentation, which is essentially just talking about the process and just talking about what opportunities are out there, we do have some collateral. What comes to my mind right away is an oil fields infographic that is available on our website. We'll send you an email with the links to the site from where you can download the content. So the traditional mesh networks, they have certain limitations, and these limitations are that the infrastructure and mobile nodes are separate units. They have separate functions. Typically, the meshing is done on the backhaul using one frequency, traditionally 5.8 gigahertz, and the access is provided on 2.4. This, we think, is a lost opportunity. They are not using all the frequencies for all the purposes. Now, the way the network is set up, it needs to be run by traditionally they would be run on layer 3. There's always a central controller, a root controller, which is maintaining the routing table and managing the data, the movement of data from one end of the network to the other. The mobile nodes are able to talk. They are not able to talk directly to each other. They always have to go through the fixed node in order to get back to the switch or to the server. And this is a potential for failure. In case one particular node goes down, for whatever reason, it could bring the entire part of the network down just because one infrastructure node has gone down. This does not happen with Rajant. With Rajant, we are able to use all the. I'm just going to go back up. So we are able to use all the clients are able to talk to the other clients. They don't need to go through the fixed infrastructure point to go back to this app server. If one node goes down, too bad. The node goes down. It does not bring down the entire network. And that is made possible by the InstaMesh. So InstaMesh, as I mentioned, it's a patented networking software which it's running on all the breadcrumbs. It allows each and every breadcrumb to constantly cost each and every port that's available to it. If a breadcrumb is connected to the wired network, it's possibly going to find that the cost of the wired network is lower, and it's going to send the packet down the wired network. If there is no wired connection, it's got only the radios to talk to others. It's going to use the fastest port available, the fastest radio available to send the packet across the network. So this provides you complete network mobility, robust fault tolerance, and high throughput. The purpose of a Rajant mesh network is to try and take the packets out of the air as quickly, as fast as possible, and put them on the wired wherever the wired network is available. The InstaMesh also provides you unparalleled wireless access, security, monitoring, and QoS, and much more. Again, I've talked about this, that the connections are made automatically as the breadcrumbs move, as the breadcrumbs are added, or as the breadcrumbs are removed from the network with a very low maintenance and administrative overheads. So the Rajant networks, they adapt as the network moves, and InstaMesh redirects packets over multiple frequencies in case of any interference. Any questions about the technology? So this really brings us to the end of our presentation. Feel free to send me an email at twasan@rajant.com. You can go to our website, www.rajant.com, for more information. And like I mentioned earlier at the beginning, that we will be sending you an email providing you links to where you can download this presentation from, and also where you can download the other collateral. Do you find sales cycles for, I have a question, do you find sales cycles for energy longer or shorter than in other industry sectors? As a sales guy, I would say yes, they are longer, and I think that's true. The traditionally, except perhaps for certain requirements of the military, which takes longer. I believe that energy sector, they take the longest to decide a technology. And like I said, since they are, the life cycle of a project could be anywhere between 8 to 10 years, 5 to 10 years. They take their time to select the technology, and that's where it's important to talk about our roadmap as to how Rajant has evolved with the 802.11. So to that extent, it's a very standard solution. It's a very predictable roadmap, and 802.11 is a very well respected, very well adopted standard and technology worldwide, and we are just going along with the 802.11 roadmap. So if the question is about the longevity of the project, and that typically is what delays their decision, what that typically is riding on their mind as to how long the product and the technology is going to last, that's where it's helpful to talk about our 802.11 credentials. I have a question here. Based on your sales point, Rajant network should be strongest when you add more breadcrumbs. Then there is there any limit to the quantity of breadcrumbs? The answer is no. We haven't seen any limit just yet. Our largest network, like I mentioned, is 700 breadcrumbs. The way our technology is designed, the more networks, the more nodes that you add, the stronger the network becomes. And also we are able to make use of the wired connections wherever they are available. So the more ingress and egress points that we can get, the stronger our network becomes. This question of interference, how does a breadcrumb handle interference? So the breadcrumb is the way it works like a switch. The breadcrumb is just constantly doing a costing of each and every port that's available to it. And on that port happens to be a radio attached. If there's a particular port which is working fine, whichever is the fastest port, the breadcrumb is going to send the packet down that particular port all the time. And this decision is made on a packet-to-packet basis. If something goes wrong with that port, that is, there's interference in that particular part of the spectrum, it's going to look for the next fastest port. It's possible that the first port may be 2.4, the next one could be 5.8 or 900 or a licensed radio if it's available to it. So the breadcrumb is making this decision on a packet-to-packet basis. It just sends the packet down the fastest port, which means the fastest radio available to it. I guess that's probably the last question. I'm just going to quickly scroll up through the questions and make sure I haven't missed any. No, that's about it. We are at 40 minutes after the hour. I'll stay on for 1 or 2 more minutes just in case anybody wants to ask any question. And of course, feel free to shoot me an email or visit our website at rajant.com, and you can pose your questions, queries over there, and download collateral from our website. And thank you, everyone, and have a good day.